These estimates were done when we were already aware of the recent unseasonal rains, which led to crop failure in some areas. So that has been factored in. In terms of the monsoon, it's difficult to act on something that hasn't happened yet, so that is a downside risk. It's important to realize that the contribution of agriculture to growth over many, many decades has been low. So any risk to agriculture is actually not a huge risk to GDP, it's a risk to farmers, which is important, but not to GDP growth as much. So I think this is not the major risk that weighs on these projections, which by and large are actually very positive.
Right, let's talk about inflation. India has managed to tame inflation decisively, but that's largely on account of the global crude prices easing a bit. Do you think low rainfall going forward could stoke inflationary concerns?
Well, one of the specific features in India is that food inflation has been stubborn historically and has been relatively difficult to address through monetary measures, because food inflation is by and large a structural phenomenon. So the taming of inflation overall is in some extent the consequence of good macro-fiscal policies and of course the favorable oil prices, much less of measures on the food side. So insofar food inflation is important for inflation, which is to a significant extent, but it's not the only factor. Obviously a monsoon risk would create an inflation risk, but it wouldn't lead to strong monetary pressures. It would lead to the need to keep looking at the structural elements underpinning food inflation and addressing those.
Let's talk about the fact that Modi government has spent nearly a year in power. But India Inc. is getting impatient. They're saying that a lot of talk is happening, but things are not really moving on ground. Are we judging the government too harshly?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't judge the government that way. And secondly, to see the kind of growth rates and taming of inflation that we see India as the bright spot amongst emerging markets, I don't know who is saying that there is any harsh judgment to pass. If people expect that somebody snaps their finger and everything changes, then indeed one could be harsh, but that is not how economies adjust in reality. I think most observers, like us, feel that there's a good effort underway, that this effort needs to be sustained, even scaled up, and that good results are on the horizon.